Up next on the classroom bookshelf, we have Can I Touch Your Hair? Poems of Race, Mistakes, and Friendships by Irene Latham and Charles Waters, Sean Qualls, and Selena Alco.
Okay.
So, Emery,
So
what is this book about?
This book is about, it's a collection of poems that are written by a white girl and a black boy. And it's all about how two classmates, how they kind of realized, they thought they were different, and then they realized that they were super similar through religion, the stuff that they like to do, their hobbies, their interests, what they wear.
So they find themselves writing about the same topics.
Same thing.
And end up understanding that they're really not that different after all.
Mm-hmm. And they were both super nervous at
Yeah.
first, and they were like, I don't want to be her partner, I don't want to be
They
his
were
partner.
apprehensive because they were going off of each other's skin colors. Like, they didn't want to work together because they were used to being separated in class and there was nobody left to be partners with, and so then
They got stuck
together.
A beautiful friendship.
But oh, how the tables turned by the end of the book.
So, let's dig in.
Welcome back to Can I Touch Your Hair?
The vlog.
A vlog post.
By McKenna and Emery.
Yes. Okay, Emery. So we've just learned the synopsis of this book, what it's all about. Now, I really want to know, how would you say that this book represents authentic voices?
Great question, McKenna. So I'm gonna read a poem. It's on page 9.
9. We love a good book with page numbers.
Love them.
Picture book
I
with
can
page
do this.
numbers.
Okay, strands. On a random Tuesday on the bus, Dennis asks me, "Can I touch your hair?" He pats it before I can respond. "It feels like a sponge," he says. My fists clench and my face gets hot. "You need to learn to wait for an answer after asking permission," I tell him and pat his hair hard. "Oh, how about that? Your hair feels like a mop," I say. I keep my fists ready, but he turns away. So I thought that this really represented authentic voices because the authors are it's two sets of biracial friends, and I think that they bring a really good perspective. Like, that is probably how kids
That's probably an authentic representation of how that
like I felt it
of
when
how
I was
that
reading.
encounter goes.
Yeah. So I think that that's a really good example in the book of how it's represented authentically. Welcome back. Next question on the plate
Number 2.
is, how did characters in this book challenge and break down stereotypes?
So, in the beginning, we've definitely got the situation going on where there's a white child and a black child. You've got that typical situation set up where they're apprehensive about working with one another. They don't want to have anything to do with one another because they don't know anything about one another. And then as the book,
opportunity.
yeah, they never had the opportunity. So, as teachers, we have to give our students the opportunity to learn to work together. And we also
Always.
think that that's how the authors help to combat this kind of scenario set up towards racism, because as the book goes on, they're learning more about one another and they start to realize how they're more similar than they are different. And then by the end of the book, they've created this beautiful friendship that kind of combats that stereotype that black kids and white kids can't be friends and they can't work well together and they can't understand one another because they're too different. So it's a really beautiful story on how two kids come to know each other through the class project. Last on the agenda, question number 3. Emery, how would you use this book to bring up critical conversations in a classroom with your students?
So, McKenna, I think that this book would be great to bring up those conversations. I think it's pretty relatable for all students, race or gender or, any difference that they might have, or like wear different clothes, whatever. That if they have felt nervous or hesitant towards working with someone that they don't get the opportunity to work with a lot. Like, if you ask that question, I feel like that would bring up a lot of
like,
input.
have you ever been around somebody that looks different than you or talks differently than you do, or wears different clothing than you do, that
Right.
kind of thing. No, I think that's good. That also goes along really well with this song about Ruby Bridges and taking a walk in her shoes.
Yeah.
And so I really think that you could use that song to also help bring up critical conversations in your classroom and relate it to this book, because in this book, these two young students are learning about taking a walk in each other's shoes, and they're hearing each other's perspectives through this poetry project. And they're able to, it's like they're taking a journey with each other to learn more about each other. So like that song about taking a walk in Ruby's shoes, you know, we can really get an understanding more about, or less about the person and more about who they are and their journey and where they come from and what they believe and how they feel, all that kind of stuff.
What they are on the inside.
It's all that matters.